Dream Scenario is the latest A24 film starring Nick Cage and surrounds a man who starts appearing in people's dreams. There's nothing remarkable about him, so to say. On the surface, he seems like a very plain person, and he starts reoccurring in a lot of people's dreams in an inexplicable way, and he becomes a viral sensation because of this. So this is a movie that I have been so excited for the better part of 3 months now. I remember seeing the trailer for Dream Scenario back in early September and just being so excited for whatever ridiculous movie that we were going to get from that trailer. Because that first trailer was just insane, and then I've been seeing more and more marketing for it as the weeks have gone by, and I mean, it's a weird A24 movie with Nick Cage in it. How am I not gonna go see that? It is still not widely released yet. I think it wide releases on Friday. I saw it in Philly because like I came home for obviously for Thanksgiving break, and I went to go see it in Philly. Um, at this really awesome theater. But like I don't know, that's not relevant for this review. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that I saw it early, because I don't know, I was so excited for this movie, and it's not the movie. This movie is not the movie that I expected it to be. That kind of could be my fault just because of you know temporary expectations from that trailer may not have been the greatest idea, because A24 likes to mislead people in their trailers. That's just something that they do. And with this movie in particular, it's definitely very different than what is being told to us in the trailer. And I think that may turn some people off from this film. I think some people are going to go into this and be a little bit bored and maybe be a little bit disappointed because they I don't know, this movie takes a sharper turn than I think most people would think, and it's a lot more grounded than I feel like a lot of other people would think. So getting that out of the way, I actually really loved what they gave us here with Dream Scenario. They took such a weird and specific premise and such a weird and specific main character and gave it to Nick Cage, who just took took this character and put him on a completely different level. On the page, Paul, I forget his last name, but the character of Paul is a very plain person. He's being told over and over again that he is a nobody. He's unremarkable. He's boring. He gets told that constantly, and that on the surface, if it was played by honestly anybody else, he could come off as kind of obnoxious, but the way that Nick Cage just fully immersed himself into this character and gave him such specific like quirks, like neurotic tendencies, he lived in this character. It felt like, and he almost disappeared into the character of Paul. Obviously, he is the central piece of this film. We follow him throughout all the entire movie. Um, and we get to see this weird and strange and awkward um, sequence of events that he just gets to stumble through, and it is one of the most like hilarious and heartbreaking and like just distinctly its own story wise that like you just cannot keep your eyes off of Nick Cage the entire time he's on the screen. He's that magnetic and he's that just like distinct, and the rest of the movie is as distinct as his performance. So like they only just elevate each other. There were sequences in this movie that were very wild. A lot of the dream sequences they go for broke, and they're all great. They're all visually very pleasing. I mean, this movie is directed masterfully. Some of the cinematography, like some of it's fantastic, and some of it is so like thought provoking, and the colors are beautiful, and the shot composition is just perfect. It hits with that extra like, whoa, that was yeah, I saw what they were doing with that. And then some of it is a little bland. Some of it is like too stock. It's just a lot of medium shots of characters talking to each other. Medium close-ups of characters talking to each other. Um, and like it felt too plain at times. Some of the cinematography. That's where some of my issues come in with this movie. I feel like some of the ideas are a little bit underbaked. Um, just to get the negative out of the way first. There were just like some quiet moments that were way too quiet. There were some moments that I felt like needed a little bit more. They needed a little bit more tension. They needed a little bit more drama. You needed to up the stakes more here. Just like nothing specifically that I could point out. Like no scene comes to mind or no specific moment in the film. Just times where I felt like, okay, they could have done that in a more exciting way. They could have done that um, in a more I don't know, creative way. There are times where this movie fails to capitalize on how creative they could have made this concept. And like 90% of the time, it's firing on all cylinders and it's working for me. And that other 10%, it's just kind of like, all right, well, we can move past this. Let's get back to the interesting stuff. Let's, get back to the meat of this movie because sometimes the movie could lose focus in one way or another, whether it be the editing, the pacing, the dialogue. Something was off with like 10% of this movie. But the rest of it is such a strange and unique, like dark ish comedy. It's very hard to describe genre wise because again, it just is so not the movie that I was expecting it to be in the best way. Like the way how it was very quiet and the way it drew comedy from just the most brutal secondhand embarrassment. Um, and I mean, like, it's worse secondhand embarrassment than like that one episode of The Office that like people can't really watch. What's it called? Scott's Tots. Like stuff like that, like secondhand embarrassment. It's up here, and yeah, it was hilarious the entire time. Um, and yeah, this is just like such a creative and unique movie that I feel like we need more of. Not all of it necessarily fully worked for me. Um, that again, like I was saying, I had issues with some of it, but like just the way it was able to draw emotion from such a strange character and such a strange arc that he goes on. He goes on this odyssey that just keeps, life keeps punching him in the face and he just kind of has to sit there and take it and not have a say in anything that's happening to him. And how that like makes him react. Ugh, I don't know. I don't want to get into any spoiler territory, but there are certain plot devices that they use and the way a lot of the third act was written, it was so good. Some of my favorite writing in any film this year, and the ending was actually very very poignant. It at first I was like, oh, that was kind of underwhelming, but then I thought about it more, and and that last shot and the last line of dialogue especially hits so hard within the context of this movie. It really, again, it ties into the genuine heartfelt emotion in this movie. Like the movie never, I don't know, fully embarrasses Paul's character. Like there's always that little bit of humanity. There's always that like that little bit of sympathy where you're always reminded of like he's not really a bad guy. He's just a plain guy that got famous for kind of the wrong reasons. And I don't know. It works for me. It's a movie about a really odd person that you know is mistreated by a world that he barely understands, and it really accurately describes that feeling of always being on the outside of what other people are talking about. And there's a lot of metaphorical stuff and a lot of the themes going on here. It's a lot to unpack, and honestly, I am thinking of doing a spoiler review for this movie just because of how much I have to say about it. But for now, I'll leave it with some more concise ending thoughts here. I thought Nick Cage was flawless. He's one of his top two performances for him. I think the direction in this movie is pretty airtight. The cinematography is pretty airtight. I've loved most of the script and the story being told, and just as an experience, this movie is definitely worth seeing. And it was right up my alley. So I'm going to give Dream Scenario a really strong A minus. This is definitely worth checking out and formulating your own opinions about. If you have seen the movie, please let me know in the comments what you thought about it, what you thought of my interpretation of it, my kind of analysis. Especially with this movie, I really want to know what each person's personal perspective on about it, just because I don't know. I feel like you could spark some interesting conversation with that. But other than that, if you're liking this video, please go share it with your friends. Subscribe, like all that good stuff. Just that stuff helps me know that you guys want to see more of this content and you like what you're seeing. And other than that, I will see you guys with the next review, which will be Saltburn. So yeah, see you guys later.